What's up, BookTube? Sandy back here with my January 2022 wrap-up video, and it was a little bit of a slow month of reading, but at the same time I got some books read that I was pretty excited about, some books that kind of run the gamut in terms of my reading interest, and maybe things that, well, I'm not normally interested in, but I wanted to give a try. So I'll talk about that next. So the first book I want to talk about is The Love Hypothesis by Ali Hazelwood. And this is one of those books that maybe is kind of appropriate in today's world because it has to do with a PhD student, a professor, a fake relationship, and some of the ramifications of all of the above. And so it's not typically my type of book that I would read as far as it being kind of a romance type book, but it was getting some pretty good reviews, so I thought, yeah, I'm gonna go ahead and give this one a try. And I finished up reading this while I was still on the holiday break. And so I carried this, or I started this, probably started this in late 2021 now that I think about it, but I finished it, the overwhelming majority of it in 2022. So this was one, again, it was off the beaten path for me, but it was very interesting. And so kind of an interesting relationship if you're familiar with how college campuses work, or if you can take yourself back to your college days, being a college student and dealing with a professor. This might get you to thinking a little bit, but very fun read. I enjoyed it, would recommend it. Maybe not for everybody, but it was definitely something that was good for me. That was a nice little change of pace from what I would normally read. Next up is a book that gets me back into my normal reading groove with The Castle School for Troubled Girls by Alyssa Scheinmel. And this one I thought was really good because, you know, this has got a lot of the things that I really like, or typically like in books, in that it has to do with young adult themes. It's at a, not really a boarding school, but it's kind of at a, sort of like a psychiatric hospital, halfway house, boarding school kind of thing going on that was really interesting for me. And then there's a mystery of this kind of a twin school that's off into the woods of Maine that gets the young ladies, the troubled girls, if you will, curious. And so they go to investigate, and it unravels a even bigger mystery than what they could have possibly imagined. But it was a fun book to read. It was very interesting. It didn't have a whole lot of crazy twists and turns, and in some ways might have, you'll probably see it coming, what's going to happen at the end, but it was still an interesting read, and it was one that I was looking forward to reading for a long time. Glad I picked up The Castle School for Troubled Girls. Next up is an author that I've enjoyed reading over the years, and she never really disappoints me, and so that streak continues as I read Kimberly McCreight with Friends Like These. And this book is cool because it has to do with, I mean, some tropes that you might find kind of familiar, some college friends that are adults now, older adults, and they kind of go back and they have a reunion and things start to unravel and they start to learn things that they did not know before, and it becomes very, very interesting. So I enjoyed this book. This is definitely my type of book, kind of a closed circle trope mystery type thing going on where things are being revealed that have been held for years, and it just starts to make you think about people that you knew in college or high school, and things that you experienced in college or high school or even before that, that suddenly come to the surface when these old people, these old friends, frenemies, enemies, whatever they are, get back together. Things can sometimes become explosive. Next up is a book that's been on my list for a while and I haven't gotten around to reading it, and I finally did get around to reading it, and boy was I glad that I finally got around to reading it. And that book is The Ivies by Alexa Dunn. Alexa Dunn is a very prominent booktuber and author-tuber, and this is one of her books, young adult, and this hits on a lot of things that I typically like, which is stories that take place at a boarding school, which is kind of a cool place, get a kind of a closed circle thing going there, and you get competition. You get a group of girls who are very competitive about getting into the colleges of their dreams, and you start to see what happens when people start to get out of their lane, get a little bit out of pocket, and start doing things that go against kind of the unwritten rules or the written rules or whatever that the group has. And so this one was very interesting. It definitely grabbed my attention right off the bat, really held my attention. Great cover art. I've talked about this before. Really fun read. Definitely would recommend this if you're into young adult, you're into the closed circle thing, boarding schools, competitive students who will stop at really nothing to get what they want. This is a book that might be quite appealing to you, The Ivies by Alexa Dunn. Next up is The Kindest Lie by Nancy Johnson. And this is a book that I actually did as an audiobook primarily, but did kind of split it up and do a little bit in terms of the physical copy of the book as well. This was a very interesting book. It's about an Ivy League educated woman engineer, and she leaves her hometown and finds success elsewhere, and she is married to a very successful man, but there's something that's tugging her back to her hometown, and so she ends up going back to her hometown. Part of it is the child that she left behind in this book that's set back in 2008 when Barack Obama becomes president, and so there's a lot of that going on in this particular story as well. So this was a very fun book to check out. Definitely enjoyed it. Definitely put back some memories in my head from back during that time, and I definitely appreciated reliving some of those moments. Very interesting book about facing things that happened in your past and trying to figure out how to reconcile some things that you're doing now with what you did in the past. Where you are right now and how you got there. So very interesting book, The Kindest Lie by Nancy Johnson. So that'll do it for the month of January 2022. Pretty solid, not necessarily a high productivity reading month for me, but pretty solid. Not a whole lot to complain about. Some really good reads for me in January, and I look forward to the books that I'm going to take on in February of 2022.